All right, peeps, we're here. We are here. Got ourselves a special wine today. First, we have had incredible weather here. Monday, Tuesday, really beautiful, really dry, not something you're used to in the Northeast. Today, it has just been so ridiculously humid. So that stuff is done. Um, anyway, to the wine, first off, to the wine. Okay, so some of you may remember a couple of weeks back, some of you may have remembered that I opened up Barbera from Piemonte, and I talked about Barbera, and I've also just to do a little brief recap, Piemonte, northwest of Italy, right, a little bit west of Milan. Okay, Turin is the main city in Piemonte, and the king and queen of wines there are Barbera and Barbaresco, which are made with Nebbiolo. I'm gonna have a Longue Nebbiolo for you guys actually, and one of these later ones. I got a Barbaresco and a Longue. Barbera's the mid-tier grape there. It's a very kind of simple pizza wine. And then you have, as the most simple grape, Dolcetto. Now, you can have Dolcetto Alba, Dolcetto d'Asti. Most of you guys have not seen a Dolcetto. If you study Italian wine, it's quite a well-known grape, but it's not a kind of grape that you get a lot of export of. It is really interesting. It does not, as I recall, have a lot of tannins to them, and usually actually it has more of a purple tint than this. This is a little bit more, which is the superior varietal, needs the best plots, and they also needs the labor during these best time periods. So they get the best spots, and they can't ripen in other spots on the slope. So they would use Barbera and finally Dolcetto for the worst locations because they're the only grapes that could ripen. Because people will sometimes ask, why don't they just use the best grapes? Why don't they use these simple ones? Well, you can't use the best ones in every location, but you can use the simple ones. And also, not everybody's going to really be here paying for, Nebbiolo. They're not always going to be paying for Barbaresco or Barolo because it can be quite expensive. So let's try it. Interesting. It's good, but it's really simple. It's super juicy, and that is all you're getting. There's no complexity to it. And to be fair, I know that some producers have tried to do some other little things with Dolcetto, but the grape is too simple of a grape, especially based on where it's grown. Maybe it would be better if it was grown where, for instance, Barolo and Barbaresco is grown on the slopes, but they're not going to give up the best spots for this grape, so it's tough to find. Maybe it has a better expression, but I would still highly. I mean, I got this in Italy, New York. I got it, I think, for like $15, and it's fun. I mean, you're not gonna break the bank over it, and it's really quite interesting. So if you guys get around there, you can grab it. I'm gonna have another sip actually. See, it's really disarmingly simple, but that makes you almost want to have more of it, which is what a good table wine should be. So anyway, all right. So our talk today, we got some fun stuff. We're going to go a little esoteric on this one, but a lot of it's going to be recapping. Now, I have to tell you guys, since I did my Antifa Periscope a little bit over a week ago, today was the first day I was really on Twitter over that entire week. And I was barely on it even that weekend before. I don't need to tell you guys, the energy is extraordinarily toxic on Twitter at the moment. There's a lot of people who are very, very invested in the fight. A lot of people falling for propaganda. Uh, and I know that a lot of people, I'm getting messages from people all the time, like, are we still on the right track? Are things okay? Is it ever going to work out? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. Everything is fine. You guys didn't really think it was going to be that easy, did you? You guys didn't think it was going to be just like a cakewalk, right? That's not how it's going to be. That's not how it's going to happen. It's a chess match, but there are pieces that are being taken off the board. But think big picture. You have to decouple from the energy exactly of what's going on right now, because if you listen to all the rage and anger that people are throwing out, then you are going to 1 second, Maggie, can you my niece just got back from the pool. We got a big family affair thing going on over here. But if you really engage with this anger, you're just becoming part of the. You're just gonna become part of the fight, which is exactly what they want. They want everyone pissed off. They want everybody signaling. They want the usual. It's like everyone into the same patterns. And there was a powder keg, to be fair, lit because you had all the stuff from COVID, people inside not being able to go out, see anybody, do anything, really hopeless. A lot of people were very, very hopeless. And so what do? You give them exactly what they want. They blow up. They blow up. And so it's the same shit. And look, I'm not even just when I say this, I'm not even just signaling out the people on the left who really fell into all the Black Lives Matter, right? This is a Soros funded movement. It's even in Wikipedia. Okay, Open Society Foundation, $100 million, I think. I mean, there's an enormous amount of money behind this thing. But look, it's not even just them. Like people on the right, they're doing the same shit. They're saying like they're getting upset about it. They're getting ready to fight. They're getting ready to defend themselves. And good. I mean, yes, get yourself prepared to the negative energy about how we gotta deal with these people. I mean, which again, remember, is mostly like a bunch of mentally ill white guys and girls or whatever they identify as. Really, like these people are not a real threat, and you have in these you have. We kept talking about this with the timeline. We keep talking about the timeline. There were no scenarios where they could win. Okay, there were no scenarios they could win. They did everything they tried to do to stop the inevitable from happening, just made the inevitable continue. That's all that happened. And this is what you're seeing right now. If you think for a second, you think your average American is going to be like, oh yeah, these mentally ill terrorists taking over the center of the city, and the party, the Democratic Party, is not doing anything to stop them and is even encouraging them. Come on, do you think this is going to play over well? There's a lot of signaling. There's a lot of signaling, and so people don't speak their mind about it. But if you get out of the insane asylum that's Twitter and you talk to people, no one likes what's going on with it, and they do have sympathy with black people, and this is understandable, and that's how they got locked into this whole cycle. So on that note, let's go and talk a little bit more about that. The connection's been fuzzy. All right, give me 1 second here. Let's see how just change internet situation here. Let's talk a little bit more about the situation. So there's more footage about what happened. There's some interesting theories going around about George Floyd, and basically about what was, how do I put it, why he was arrested, why he was pulled over. Um, so Derek Chauvin, right? They both work security at the same nightclub. Seems very clear that the nightclub was a money laundering operation. Okay, it was a money laundering operation. And so the theory that some people had was that George Floyd, after the nightclub's been shut down for a couple months, you got to keep the laundered money kind of downplay it. You can't do too much with it because there's no business. So why would there be this fake money going around? But that he was maybe getting desperate and that he went to the store and was using it. I don't really know if I buy this story. There could be some truth to it. Frankly, my perspective is that it's too convenient that there had to be another layer behind this. I think that people who you have like normies who don't see any patterns at all, and then you have sort of tier one kind of conspiracy oriented people who might see this and they might see like, well, this happened and this was something else was going on beneath the surface. It wasn't what it looked like, but everything happened just in response to it. Like all the riots were either organic or maybe they were encouraged, but that these things didn't just rise out of, that they didn't rise. But when you get a little bit deeper into it, you start to see that, at least in the case of many of these things, if not most, that it's the Hegel dialect, and they control the problem so they can control the solution. They just give us the problem that we react to, and then they provide the solution to it. So the point being that it seems likely to me that there was more going on with how this occurred. And a great clue is 97 Sigma. Now, do you guys know what 97 Sigma is? Have you guys seen anything about 97 Sigma? Well, maybe you recall there was a news story recently. And by the way, guys, how's the connection now? Can someone comment? How's the connection? Is the connection better before I go into 97 Sigma? Because I don't know what to expect from these numbers. All right, good. Okay, so maybe some of you guys saw that there was a business owner who was saying his business was burned down, one of the first businesses burned down. And he was saying how this is, he was leaving Minneapolis. This was, not cool. What happened to his business? He can't be, I can't trust anything in the city. Okay. What did this guy's business operate? What did it operate? You guys know? Mannequins. Life-size mannequins. Very hyper-realistic mannequins. Okay? You can't make this shit up. You can't make it up. And before people jump on this and say, well, what the fuck does that mean? Are you saying, I don't know whether George Floyd was killed or not. We know that he was an actor. He was a pornographic actor, right? We know the same thing with Derek Chauvin. They were both in media, right? Or Hollywood, rather, entertainment. They both had their foot in the entertainment industry, okay? People have pointed out some discrepancies on the street in the video that we've seen versus, things that were there at the time. People point out that the gas prices were different in the video than it actually was in, I don't know if that's true, than it actually was during the day. I don't know about that. But you don't need to, not all these like little attacks on it need to be true for it to be pointed out that Derek Chauvin, with it, people viewing him on camera, is leaving his neck on the person's neck, leaving his leg on the person's neck, right? Follow zero protocol that you're supposed to follow for an EMT. Okay, they don't come in the cops come out of the ambulance, and they don't put a neck brace on. They don't check anything. I mean, people who are in paramedics have talked about this at regular. Actually, it's just completely off protocol. You would never do it under any circumstances. Literally just take him and they just put him on and they pick him up very lightly and they throw him on there. Now, some other things that people have mentioned are that, okay, he's came up with fentanyl coronavirus, right? We don't have to, not all of these things need to be true, right? Doesn't mean, or sorry, what I mean to say is that it's tough to parse exactly what's happening. Was George Floyd killed? Was he not even on the scene at that point? Right? Was that a mannequin that they covered? Because the owner of this place has a mannequin that looks just like George Floyd, right? Or whatever. But yeah, this is another point I was going to come to, is that the same exact scenario as the white cop on a minority's neck happened in multiple other countries within days of this event. All of them filmed. The whole thing is very, very obvious and very ridiculous when you really look at it. And so you start to see that, and BAP has talked a bit about how the third precinct was having some issues with the government, with the city government, and so that their precinct was burned down for that reason. Maybe it was that. Maybe it's because there was some dirty stuff going on with the money. They were destroying evidence. It's really tough to say exactly what is happening, but what is very clear is that there was a lot of premeditation with this. There's a lot of premeditation, tons and tons of irregularities. You just can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. So now, of course, everything's blowing up, and then we can transition to the next thing here, which is Blackout Tuesday. Now, to understand, and I don't pretend to be like an expert on Saturn matrix, so some of you guys feel free. I know Bob, I know you know a lot about this stuff. Feel free to chime in here. But essentially, we have been under an energetic matrix for a very long time called the black box or black cube. And it's sort of like a harvester. So when we talk about when people die for a long time because they're harvesting our energy as souls here, you've heard the term prison planet. There's deeper layers to that. It's that your soul wasn't allowed to leave Earth. It wasn't allowed to go other places, basically. And you could say that, for instance, you know, Jesus's teachings, for instance, higher ascension. You can find it in some other religions as well. But this idea of different sort of ways of orienting yourself in the system, or a way to kind of escape the matrix. But for the average person, you would continually recycle on this planet over and over and over again. And so there was a grid. And Saturn was the source of the grid. Now, if you get really deep back into this esoterica, there are claims that Saturn actually used to be a moon. Or sorry, Saturn actually used to be a sun. And there's some sort of, if you go back in some, I think, apocryphal teachings, I talk about how Earth used to have there used to be like a reddish hue in the sky. And this is, I suppose, because Saturn was what we would call a brown dwarf star. I don't really know the mechanisms to which this changed. If it did change, it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of roads leading to it, though, and so you can do further research on that if you'd like. But the point is that within Saturn, that there was this black cube energy matrix that kept us in this sort of dark web, where they harvested our emotions, and there was in fear, etc. All these low vibration things were constantly. Basically, we existed in this very, very shit world, so to speak. And yes, Saturn, Set, root of Satan. That is completely correct. So they're all connected. So when we talk about Satan, Lucifer was an entity, but Satan is more of an energy from what is understood, and it's connected to the Saturn matrix. This is my understanding from esoterica. And there is some evidence of this, like peculiar hexagrams on the top of Saturn that were detected even and released by NASA just a couple of years ago. It's a very, very strange occurrence that no one could explain, right? So anyway, what's the point of this? So from what I understand, that the black box has been taken down. Oh, one last point about it. The moon was the antenna of it. So they often call it the Saturn moon matrix, because the energy's from Saturn, but it's going to the moon, and the moon wraps around the Earth. So the souls are sort of trapped in the moon belt. That's sort of the idea around it, which is why when we talk about moon bases, to what extent that they were used to sort of maintain the matrix field. Okay. What did they find when they went to the moon? Okay. Some people say they didn't go to the moon. I don't know, whatever. But, all right. So the point of this is that the understanding is the matrix was taken down recently, and I've heard this from multiple astral travelers that net has been the black cube has been broken, and they are on backup generators, so to speak. So they don't have the full support of this matrix to trap people, which is why the vibration of the planet is ascending. You wouldn't feel it based on the last couple of weeks, but I want to make a point about this, right? Prior to this event, things were very, very objectively getting better from the energy. Everybody felt it. Everybody felt it. And even with this, I'm telling you guys, I mean, to be honest, I felt it for a couple of years, but it's so clear now, the emptiness of the outrage. Like, you can feel when there is a force behind outrage. And so we're seeing things happen in like the 3D realm, so to speak, but we are not, we're seeing this happen in the 3D realm, but if you're gauging like the deeper energy, it's kind of like when somebody's yelling at you, but you know that it's because they're super desperate and they're in a very weak position. And so I don't really feel on a deep level that any of the terrible things that they're trying to implement, I don't feel any resonance to them holding. They're just not sticking. They're not sticking. They're attempts, but they're not sticking. And so the point here is that they have lost their primary energy matrix of keeping people at a low vibration. And so they've been using backup generators. I don't really know what this looks like, guys. I don't know what it looks like. I don't even know to what extent it's symbolic versus physical. I really don't know. It could be something that exists in the astral plane and is not really a 3D thing at all. But there is an energy. So what they've been trying to do with this event is they've been trying to basically charge their backup generator. And so how have they been doing this? Well, it was noticed that there was a plane or a higher level drone, let's say, that was flying in a hexagon pattern over Minneapolis in the first days of the rides, right? So there was something there. But I put this out the other day, Blackout Tuesday. Everybody posts a black square on their social media. That is a spell, okay? You post a black square, you are basically posting a black cube. And especially when that intention's coming from fear or anger or whatever, you are feeding the matrix. Well, or what in this case would be a backup generator. Yeah, Ice Cube, I don't really know much about him, but he was posting the truth. I mean, in the image he put out today. Well, first off, he had the fact that there are black cubes in all these major cities. Who put them there? Go figure, right? Who put them there? But then beyond that, you also had, this is an Anunnaki pictograph of two reptiles controlling two people who are bound together, who are basically controlling the masses who are fighting over each other. Okay, this goes back a long time. It goes back a long time. And people in the esoteric worlds can quibble about whether or not these are sort of Nephilim demons who are trying to take down people, or whether this is, Draco reptilians. I personally lean more towards the latter. I think the Draco are probably more, they're extraterrestrials who interface with the same demons. I don't know that I believe that they are the demons themselves, but I think it's worth talking about. But whatever, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. The point is that all this stuff, the black box, this is part of the negative energy program, and which is why I posted that image. Some of you maybe thought it was stupid. I don't care if you thought it was stupid. That image I didn't say it was the antidote. I said it was an antidote. It had different resonance to it. And so post a lot of like rose gold colored things. Rose gold is, if you go down to sort of more of, from an energetic perspective, it has a lot of resonance with changing the vibration, let's just say. I don't know that I'm super qualified to speak on that because I haven't astral traveled myself, although I know many people who have. So, last little thing we'll talk about here, and then you guys can ask some questions. A lot of you were telling me to check out Elon Musk interview with Joe Rogan. Well, I'll just say this real quick. Is it related to alchemy? It is related to alchemy. Alchemy is a very, very interesting process, mostly associated with the foundations of chemistry. and also Carl Jung. These are accurate, but not all encompassing. Alchemy is basically transformation of material, and I suppose you could say ether as well. And what it was sort of a very mystical, high vibration practice that didn't really start to disappear in America until after the revolution. It had, I forget the names. Many of the founding fathers were actually grounded in a lot of alchemical tradition, but it did start to fall out of popularity as the Enlightenment really took hold. I know that the revolution was during the Enlightenment, but I mean that there were a lot of residual effects of alchemists came to America, and were practicing things. I read about this a bit. It was a little bit of a high barrier to entry profession because you need a lot of different materials. You're in lab. But there's alchemy, there's internal alchemy, there's external alchemy. You can change materials and you can also change things internally within you. And so you would say maybe that Carl Jung's type was more of an internal alchemy. Some of the things that we see in chemistry was external. At any rate, a lot of it has to do with raising your vibration. Um, I think when you get to I think that if you look at like the miracles that are performed, miracles are a form of alchemy, and I think that you gain access to that when you get to a higher vibrational state, which is why a lot of the practices of alchemy were closely guarded. If you look at some of the books, they'd say this is how you make gold, and if you actually follow those procedures, you blow yourself up. So it was they create a lot of ways to sort of block off their secrets, and some of this maybe was Luciferian and trying to hoard hidden and secret knowledge. I would not say it's my specialty. I know that Lloyd, Business and Bullets, knows quite a bit about that. But anyway, Elon Musk and Neuralink. Let's go to that. Because a lot of you guys were telling me to watch that interview, and I finally got around to it today. And I understand why a lot of you made some mention of it to me. So it's a little disconcerting, isn't it? Because Elon's whole thing with Neuralink is to basically have people merge with AI. And so you can think that if you follow spiritual traditions and the fact that technology is really embedded in everything, and if we have, if we were to actually have like chips inside of us, I mean, this is a big trigger point for people because you're basically merging with the Matrix, right, in a certain sense. And Musk's argument around this is that if we don't merge with it, it's going to control us and dominate us. Okay, fair enough. Um, I'm just going to give my perspective on this because I think it's difficult to parse. Because you also have Starlink, right? Starlink is creating his SpaceX, Space Force, is creating a grid of satellites around the Earth, which is creating an electronic web. Okay, so if you are very suspicious about all things grounded in dark tech, then you're going to really have a lot of alarm bells going off about what Elon's talking about and about the intentions of Starlink, right? Now, I can say this, I don't get the sense that Elon is a bad actor, okay? I don't agree with him, and I don't think that he has the same sort of orientation as yours truly or other spiritual teachers. There's a game, Civilizations, the video game. I haven't played it, but they have a game that's like a future civ, and you can kind of build civilizations in three different ways, like tech paths. And one is to kind of be like very much integrated with nature and sort of using etheric energy that you borrow from nature, and it's very high vibration. And then you have one that's all robotics, and then you have one that's sort of like hybrid, transhumanism, sort of. And it seems like Elon is in this middle path. So it's like there's three philosophies going on here. I guess I'm going to put two things out here for you guys to consider. Here's the first. The first is that a lot of the aspects of tech are about the intention behind it. And Elon's very much emphasized the fact that the tech is completely voluntary. Now, maybe, of course, is it really voluntary if everybody else is doing it and they're getting so much power? It's an open question. But the point is that it seems like his intentions are to try to rescue us from the sort of matrix AI that would control everything around us. And that this was a way that we would be able to have some degree of autonomy within it, and that if the tech were properly put together, that we would be able to interface in it with a way that would be only beneficial and not negative. Okay. Um, Now, I know that some people, the alarm bells go off with that because we've heard bullshit before. And I'm being very circumspect here because I really do think, if I'm being totally honest here, I'm just going to like put it out logically. Okay. Elon Musk is bad, then Trump is bad because Trump created the Space Force, which is basically SpaceX moving into the government. And Starlink is a program that the US government is going to be using not only to create a safe, sort of neutral web network, but also to be able to basically have planetary control and to clean up a lot of the bad actors, right? That's at least what we're told. Now, could it be used instead as a means of enslavement? It could. It could be used instead as a means of enslavement. It's and we just don't know, and which is why when we talk about these things, I don't think that anybody should have the viewpoint. You always have to be aware that there could be another play going on, and so I have seen some stuff that has indicated that if you follow the Revelations path, that Trump and the alliance are the second beast of the apocalypse. Okay. And so the first beast was the sort of overt criminal, satanic sort of thing. And the second beast cleans up the first beast and promises like a utopia. And then people fall in line to be part of this utopia. And this would be things like Jacera and Necera, right? Which are these sort of economic redistributions, changing the systems. Uh, I have given my perspective, and my perspective is that the Revelation timeline was the Cabal timeline, and it's gone. Right? That is my perspective. That said, I'm very aware of the fact that that could be incorrect. And the only other alternative I've seen, I mean, when people say, like, Trump's part of the Cabal, it's like, there's absolutely no chance he's part of the Cabal. There's absolutely no chance. It's just so ridiculous when people say that. It's just like zero critical thinking whatsoever. But I do hold open the possibility that this second group does not necessarily have, in the end, good intentions for us. I have to hold that possibility open because I see no evidence at this point that indicates it's not true. What I know right now is they are taking out a very, very caustic, evil bunch of people. And that they seem to me much, honoring people's autonomy and seem to be taking us into a position where we can, all this technology that was stolen from us, all these opportunities to grow and expand are there. But I don't know if that is a manipulation. I don't know that. And so I think it's important to hold that with Elon because, Elon's giving up his possessions. I mean, this is a very, very different kind of psychology from someone like Musk and from someone like Gates, right? He has no ambition for global control. He just simply wants to expand people technologically forward. I hope I don't sound too naive when I say that, but I really don't get that sense from him that he wants control over things. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to expand things technologically. He wants to move us to the stars. Now, the question is that, what does that really mean? That's the only question. Is it a different game, maybe that's being played? Maybe that's it. We'll find out, but just understand, if Elon is bad, if Austin is bad, then Trump's bad. because they're all doing the same things. They're all preaching the same message. And yes, you may want to control on Mars, and there are some very interesting esoteric things about Mars. I won't talk about it too much right now. I need to brush up a bit, to be honest. But Mars, Venus, Tiamat, which is what the asteroid belt is. Very interesting, very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, guys, I'll take some questions. Do you have any questions for me? That's all I got for you. Questions. This dolcetto is really good, by the way. I'm going to give you guys another chance to look at the label. Filari Lungi. It's just really like... It's so simple, but it's so smooth. Like, it's just so well made. There's nothing interesting about it, but yet it just is so satisfying. It's such a good table wine. Any questions? I'm not seeing any questions, guys. The first. Oh, here we go. They're all coming up now. Yeah, Elon had to come up with $500 million to get his Tesla bonus. Yeah. I mean, it's business. It's business, right? Do I see the riots continuing? It seems to be fading in support. I don't see it continuing. I mean, I see it continuing until the point where everybody hates them. You know, I don't see it as a real threat. I really think that these people are nothing without their financial funding. Like, look at it. The bricks were pre-positioned, okay? These people have been trained. That's well known that they have been, that Open Society Foundation has done, they have camps and stuff where they taught these people to be agitators. And what was the last point here? When they're in these centers, they're like, oh, we're watching movies and we're eating food. Who's giving them the fucking food? Where is that stuff coming from? Where is that stuff coming from? So the entire thing is really like, it only exists because it's been bankrolled and allowed to exist. And so I'm not worried about it at all. Now, I don't know how much longer it's going to continue for. I know it won't continue into August. Be very surprised if it continues into August, but it could be continuing throughout the next month in some waves. I don't know. I don't really care about the timeline too much. As far as I'm concerned, if things are happening by the fall, and guys, guess what? Hillary Clinton's testifying. She's being brought in. She's being brought in to testify. And there are criminal indictments dropping right now. So it's all happening, just there's a timeline to it. Now, I do actually have to use this to do a little bit of a gripe about something. I just got to say it. I didn't say it on Twitter. I got to say it, though. Q people really need to rein it in a bit. They need to rein it in a bit. They're getting sloppy. They were putting out some stuff on qmap.pub, the QPub, with crappy titles that people were immediately attacking because they were misunderstanding the code, misunderstanding what was basically going on. And I'm seeing them latch on to too much nonsense. And they're just really like it. I mean, there's a lot of energy behind the movement, and it's great, but they are really just... I just see them doing things over and over again that are discrediting them. And it's silly because they're fundamentally right about the trajectory, but they get so caught up in trying to analyze every little detail. And I know it's fun for them, and it's like it's entertainment for them, but the people who are looking in, it's not entertainment. To people looking in, it's like these people make up shit. They see something and they latch onto it and they blow it up. And you have to just be so cautious about doing that when you're trying to persuade. And that's why I think one of the big problems with the Q movement is that they're just like boxed into their own little cult. And maybe it's one of the reasons why, again, I'm going to keep saying it, I really don't like him. I really don't like... There's nothing about, like, Austin Steinbart's fanboys annoy me too in their own way. And it's like... But at the very least, it's like the message seems more reasonable. about being a little bit more discerning, opening up the dialogue to bigger groups. It's very incestuous right now, and I don't know. It's neurotic. Frankly, it's neurotic. So I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed a little bit about it, but they're still doing good things. They're humans. They're humans. I'm not like angry at them or anything like that. They're out there doing far more than me to spread the word about these things. But it's just getting a little out of control sometimes. For instance, I'll give you an example. There was some stuff going around about this document, allegedly from the 1960s and 1980s in Quebec, that was supposed to detail and outline the entire CABAL plan, apparently given by a journalist who was killed from a heart attack. Him and his other colleague were both killed by heart attacks almost at the same time. I admit that Sketchy probably was killed. But just a point here. So Larry, I don't know his last name, but he was one of the co-founders of Wikipedia, and he's been really, really important because he's like someone who is about open source information. And is now no longer affiliated with Wikipedia for obvious reasons, right? Wikipedia is a total propaganda outlet. Doesn't mean I don't look at them for things I shouldn't, but it's very convenient. But he talked a lot about COVID and bullshit around COVID. Okay, anyway, so this document goes out, and everyone in Q's talking about how this is like the big thing and how it says everything. And literally, it says everything exactly how you would like to see it. And I'm not saying it's incorrect, okay? I'm not saying that it's incorrect. I'm just saying that a lot of this stuff is really sloppy. And when he starts to ask questions and he says, like, what do we know about the origins of this document? When do we actually have proof it was written then? If we do have proof, what do we know about the origins? Like, these are legitimate questions to ask. And people in Q are like, you don't open your eyes, you're never going to see it. Like, this is not a guy who's like a zombie who doesn't believe in any of this stuff. He's very open to it. He's put his own reputation on the line and talk about it. He's just asking you guys to be a little less fucking reckless, right? To be a little bit more concerned with accuracy over just emotion. And I think that people in the Q community really need to understand that. When you start to spread around a bullshit video of Obama speaking to the Bilderberg group, which is entirely a deep fake, when you spread that stuff around and you say, look, Obama's revealing the whole New World Order plan, and people are like, this is a fake video, you look retarded. You look retarded and you look crazy. So please rein it in a little bit. The plan, it's all happening, yes, but please rein in the day-to-day stuff because you are compromising an active military operation when we're trying to persuade people. So anyway, whatever. Rant. It's a rant. I'm ranting. I'm getting like Alex Jones. I'm getting so angry. I'm not getting angry. I'm not like Alex Jones. I'm not angry. But there's a little bit of theatrics here. Yeah, it's all good for the engagement, right? All right. So do I think Star Wars is a pawn? Yeah, I think he's a pawn. He's certainly not the main guy. He's the guy that we see, but he's a major player. But whenever let's just say he's not the tip of the iceberg. I would say that he's not the tip of the iceberg, but he's not nothing. I mean, some people are like, "Oh, Soros is." No, I mean he's probably 1 or 2 degrees beneath the top. Would be my guess. Like the Rothschilds are like 1 degree. Have anything especially fun or exciting in the works? Well, guys, this is just a little thing for me. A little side note. I put out an email today. I put out another one earlier in the week. I hope to be getting some more stuff out, but to be honest, I'm doing a lot of deep work right now. I am literally not. For this entire month, I'm putting zero pressure on myself to do any work at all. I do my stuff with clients as usual. I take on new clients, but in terms of like, you got to wake up at this time and do this and this, I'm not doing any of that. I got Alexander Cortez's new bodyweight workout program. I went for a 10-mile walk today. I am spending a lot of time out in nature, and I am dealing with some very, very subtle but very, very important things for myself. I have to work out, basically. And I had a really, really big breakthrough last night, and I'm gonna keep doing that. And so I don't know what's gonna happen afterwards, but one of the big parts of it is to stop committing to things that I don't feel like that I'm doing for other people. So I'm really like at this point in my life, I'm not committing to things. Even for you guys, I love you guys, but I'm just really trying to keep my commitments to a minimum. And so obviously, if you paid to work with me and you're a client, I am 100%. That's a contract. We're on agreement with that. But it's the contracts that I'm making that I'm not really aligned with, that I say out of like, hey, like, okay, sure, yeah, it sounds good, yeah, I'll do that. I'm not doing that anymore. So, all right, if Nasara is used for a new economic way of life and people refuse to go by it, is it the mark of the beast system? That is a theory. That's a theory, Andrew the Fifth, and I think it's a valid theory. I don't know if it's true, but it's one of the things I've considered quite a bit. So I'm keeping a very open mind with this. But when we talk locally within the next year, this is not of concern, because if that is the trajectory of things, then we can't change it anyway, and we might as well be where the energy is, which is the death of the first beast. And the second one can come in, and then we can be ready to oppose the second beast. But when I say oppose, I really mean it's just be observant of the trends. I don't mean like get angry about it. Statue removals. Look, this is my personal perspective. I think it's ridiculous. It's my perspective. I understand how it can upset people, but the reality is that I know where the campaign comes from. I know the campaign comes from complete, like, it's the propaganda machine, and I don't think you can fairly judge people from the past for, well, first off, you can't judge an older period for things that you wish they did now. It doesn't make any sense. The purpose of an historical legacy is to preserve a sense of continuity and acceptance of the past. But also, the men who are being put on these statues are not being praised for the things that they are being taken down for. And I think this is the thing that's really important here. If a statue was of a man whose purpose of being was to get slaves and to bring slaves over here, and that was his big impact in society, was opening the slave trade, then I get it. I get it. Why is this person being glorified? He's being glorified for a value we no longer have. But if he was an individual, let's just say a Confederate general, who perhaps had slaves, right? He had slaves, but he's not, the statue of him is not up because of slaves. They lost the war over that. The statue of him is put up because of his heroism in battle. So there's a different virtue, there's a different archetypal virtue being elevated from what he's done. And I think that it's ideology that misconstrues all this. And I don't think it's great to be taken down. I think that it sets a very, very bad precedent of trying to rewrite history. And frankly, it's just it's a revolutionary tactic. So I understand very much the agenda behind it. So it doesn't even matter on a certain level. It doesn't even matter how accurate the criticisms are, because the intention is wrong. And if you guys know anything about me, it's all about the intention. The intention is what's important. If the intention is to create more antagonism, if the intention is ideology, then I don't support it. I don't support it. I am sympathetic to some people and how they can get brought into this, but you have to understand that the only reason you're feeling this is because of a manipulation campaign. So just be aware of that and how your emotions are being manipulated, and don't fall into the fight. I'm not speaking up about it. because I don't want to be involved with the fight, and it doesn't fucking matter. Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. People who want to be in the fight can be in the fight, but I'm telling you guys now my own perspective. But getting angry about it one way or another, I mean, it's not the way to solve it, because then you put people into their positions. I'm not saying that we shouldn't stop it. I hope I'm being clear about this. I'm just saying that there's no use in trying to. I don't want to get upset at black people who, for instance, might not be sympathetic to the statue, and so therefore they are sympathetic to the taking down of the statue. I have no fight with those people because there's no real issue between us. It's simply that we are being divided by an agent provocateur, right? Provocateur. That's what it is. That's what it is. So anyway, I think enough said. Can I talk a bit more about what it means to be high versus low vibration? Recommend you guys read Stephen Hawking's book, Power versus Force, or you can read Eric Dodson's Levels of Energy. These books basically talk about a vibrational field and sort of things that are priorities. And so just very, very quickly here, because it's a whole deeper topic, but the lowest of the low vibration is pretty much like apathy and hopelessness. You see a lot of druggies in that situation. Then you move up to more like fear, and then fear turns to anger, and then anger turns to pride. And pride is probably the top of the low vibration. And we're talking about baseline here, because people are going to fall back into these states, but they fall back into them due to pockets. I won't get into that, but you have a sort of baseline state. So after pride, you start to move more towards a mid vibration area, and a lot of people are kind of in this sort of normie world where they just kind of do what they're told. They're not like necessarily negative, but they're not really creating a bunch of positive stuff. You don't start to move into more of a positive field until you hit courage. Courage is a step out of fear. When you take a step out into the unknown, you've hit courage, and then from there it starts to grow. So you have entrepreneurialism, right? You have rationalism, like the idea of trying to seek knowledge for the sake of knowledge versus for power, right? And then you get to the higher levels where it starts to be much more oriented around love and humor and lightness, right? That you kind of see the construct for what it is and you don't buy into it. And that's sort of a generalized scale. The main thing, if you want to really simplify it, fear versus love. Low vibration is anything based on the fear construct. Love is based on high vibrational construct. So if you find yourself in the fear paradigm, anger, remember, is a form of fear because it's in response to something that you're afraid of or that you didn't feel like you could express. So you get angry. Someone's going to take something away from you. It's fear. All low vibration, right? Courage is overcoming fear, which is why it's the start of high. All right, Russia making moves in Syria. What's the future for the Middle East? I have no idea. It's a really good question. I have no idea. I've not been paying attention to it, and so I'm not going to much speculate on it. I continue to see the same trajectory unfold overall. So to me, it's probably minor things, but I don't know. Hillary court in September. Any thoughts? Popcorn. That's all. Only thoughts I have is popcorn. It is. I see very good things coming out of that. Yep. 2 a.m. Wikipedia binges, dude. You know it. Wikipedia plus Google Maps. That's why my geography is so good, because I've looked at shit from all around the world. Did you see Epstein documentary? No mention of Clinton's. Yeah, the Epstein documentary is I'm forgetting the term for this, but the Epstein documentary is basically a neutralization strategy. So one of the big things is if you can't stop a story, you don't try to block the story from being released, you change the nature of it. And so what they did with the Epstein documentary was they would say, yeah, Epstein's a bad guy, and look, he knew Trump, and so that's I look like Chandler from. I've never gotten that before, and so hopefully like Chandler back in the day, not today, right? So anyway, the point is that they're just trying to take Epstein and have it connect to Trump to neutralize their own involvement. So even if people point out, they can at least say Trump was involved too. And that was the whole thing behind the bunk lawsuit I mentioned last week. You guys can check that out if you want more information about it. But I mean, guys, it's Epstein documentary was a way to sort of deflect. I'd say that. CABAL originated in Babylon. Is that where this whole energy is coming from, destroying statues? I don't have enough experience, Ahmad, to tell you that for certain. Although I would say that I am familiar with Kabbalah and its traditions going all the way back then, and I would say that yeah, it's there are connections to Kabbalah. I don't know if specifically in regards to the statues. I don't know about that, but I know that Kabbalah was very connected to Saturn, Satan, that whole thing. Um, where the Anunnaki originate from? Well, that depends, man. Do you mean the Anunnaki or do you mean the Draco impersonating the Anunnaki? There's a lot of discussion about that. Uh, some people said Nibiru. What is Nibiru? Right? It's a planet out there. There's some indications that there's another gravitational force coming from a big planet that's out in the Kuiper belt. That I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. To be honest, I would not consider that my area of expertise, but I'm interested in it. And I gotta take one more question because I got dinner. Did you see Bill Maher blaming white supremacists for the riot? Yeah, I did. I did see that. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense, but it's pretty funny. Ireland is now mini China. I don't know. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. Anyway, I gotta go to dinner. See you guys. Thanks for stopping by.